You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Miriam Airington-Fisher, author, coach, mom, and attorney, owner of Airington Law in Richmond, Virginia. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, so doing well. It's great to see you. We're going to jump into that and your story and history right after a few words from me for our friends over at Lex Reception. Lawyer Stories community, listen up. Less admin, more time for you. You could switch off knowing that your calls are going to be covered by Lex Reception, answering your calls and messages in real time, scheduling appointments. Your clients are going to receive care and support they need with Lex. Their legally answering specialists are on hand 24/7, so you'll never miss a call or a future case. Custom scripting and software that will seamlessly integrate with your current workflow. Lex is going to make sure that every potential client gets fantastic service from the very first call. Thank you to our friends at Lex, and I do highly recommend everybody check out Lex Reception. You can get $250 off with Lawyer Stories for your first month. All right, Miriam. So back to you after that short break. So nice to reconnect. So I went through our Lawyer Stories archives, aka my Gmail, and I saw you submitted your story December 6, 2019. Thanks for your support and for standing by and everything. And now we finally get to see what's been going on since then and to catch up a little bit.
Yes, it's been a really great 5 years, I guess.
That's awesome. So I think one thing that came to mind, are you like a Virginian? Is that what they say? Are you a person from Virginia? Tell me.
No, I am not a person from Virginia.
Okay.
I'm actually from Jersey.
Jersey. Okay.
Yeah,
What part?
I am. I grew up in Scotch Plains in central Jersey,
Very nice.
Union County. Exit 135 off the Garden State, if that means anything to you.
I've been in Jersey a few times, so that's okay. And you
Yeah.
ended up in Virginia, but you went to, I just kind of noted that you went to really good schools like GW, and you went to, the U. Do you do this?
Yeah.
Miami, right?
Yeah.
Law school,
Yeah.
the U. That's awesome. How did you get to Virginia?
Well, my ex-husband was from Virginia,
Oh,
so
okay.
I got engaged in law school when I was down in Miami and
Nice.
moved up here. I graduated, I think our graduation was on a Saturday. Sunday, I moved up to Richmond, and then I started, bar review on Monday.
Yeah, we'll talk offline about this, but going to law school is kind of you got to pick a place where you want to be right away. And that was really actually difficult for me because I'm from Maine originally, and I don't know, I just had a difficult time figuring out where I wanted to be. But anyway, so tell us when you knew you wanted to be a lawyer, and then we're going to go into the immigration piece. I know that you have a great history behind it, but tell us when you knew.
Yeah, so I definitely wanted to be a lawyer since I was young. So I grew up a very close-knit family. I lived across the street from my grandparents, and I
Mhm.
used to sleep at my grandma's house on Friday nights.
Oh, it's so
Um,
sweet.
and yeah, it was great. And we used to watch all the courtroom dramas, Perry
Yep.
Mason, Matlock, those types of shows. And I really was hooked early on with trial work, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay.
I thought, I can do that. I loved the idea of speaking up for someone else and, the little guy and all that. So I went, through college, did the political science route, everybody does.
Yep.
and I went to Miami for law school and was really focused on getting a job as a public defender. That was really what my dream was. I wanted the trial work. And I graduated in, that I think they call it the Great Recession now, 2008, 2009.
Okay.
It was a recession, and basically there was like nobody was hiring. Firms were rescinding their job offers, all the state
I do
agencies had
remember that. Yeah.
raises. Yeah, so I
It'd
ended
be
up at
like, here's your job. It's going to be pretty sweet at this big firm, and then, oh, sorry, we can't hire you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I guess, I didn't have a job lined up like that to be withdrawn, but I did run into hiring freezes at the state agencies. So I started at a legal aid office. It was a
Okay.
really small legal aid office in Fredericksburg, Virginia, serving like rural counties. So it was like my
Okay.
cousin. I was driving
That's
around all
awesome.
day. Yeah, going to these
Did
like
you have
small.
any courtrooms like in a basement? Like I've been to some of those where like the courtroom is in a basement. I mean, hey, they're all serving justice. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing, but yeah,
right.
two of them were in basements. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
My office was like cinder block walls. I mean,
Yeah.
basically looked like a prison cell. No, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely
The work
loved.
is like priceless, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it
That's
was great, but my heart was really like I really wanted to do criminal defense, and so stayed at legal aid. I did a lot of civil work there, and then when it's in a small town when you're a young lawyer and you're in court and stuff. People notice you,
right.
and so I got recruited by a small criminal defense firm, and I moved over to that.
Nice. You were at legal aid though, doing like taking care of like indigent defendants, that sort of thing at first at
So
legal
in
aid.
in Virginia, legal aid is all civil work. So it was like
Okay,
family custody, protective orders,
gotcha.
landlord tenant, everything but criminal, pretty
That makes
much.
sense. Okay, that makes sense. So just curious, how did you decide on the U for law school? Great school. My uncle went there actually, like way back in the day. But
I loved it. You're the second person this week that's asked me that, and I'll just tell you the truth, and it makes me sound kind of flaky, but I went to undergrad at GW, and I applied to like all these good law schools in the Northeast, and then I guess my second to last year of college, I broke up with my, long-term high school college boyfriend. I
okay,
had a
all right.
friend that was living in Miami. She was going to the U for undergrad. So I flew down there. We like, partied, went to the beach,
Nice,
and I'm
good for you.
like, this is the place to be,
Yeah.
So I went back to DC. I applied early admission to Miami. I withdrew all my other applications, and I was like, I was it. I was like, beach, South Beach clubs. That sounds like the place to go to law school.
Yeah, definitely. You could bring your case books into the club.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. No, Miami's great. We actually had an event in Miami in February. It was a lot of fun.
I
Um,
love it.
we did like a networking event. So we've done a couple of them now down there. But so so all this experience, you have like tremendous experience. Anybody who goes to your LinkedIn will see that you have like really good experience leading up to what you're doing today. Um, when did you know it was time to launch your own firm?
I when my I was about to have my daughter. So and yeah, I've been so fortunate. I had really great experiences. I had a wonderful mentor. I did such fun stuff all, the first, almost decade of my career. 2016, I was pregnant with my daughter, my first child. I was going through a divorce, and the law firm that I worked at was kind of starting to break up. You know how small law firms are. There's a lot of breaking up, and then, a couple people form a firm and a couple people form a firm. That sort of stuff was happening. And it was just all craziness all at once. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. I wanted to continue practicing. I honestly never considered like getting another job. I just thought, I'll start a firm, I'll hang a shingle, and I'll kind of figure it out. I was a new single mom, and at the time I didn't have any family in the area, so
Wow.
I just wanted to be like responsible for myself. I wanted to just
Yeah.
be able to call the shots and like build something.
And flexibility too. So that's also helpful. You know, you might have to work in between, when your new child is awake or sleeping, that sort of thing. So I can
Yeah,
imagine the flexibility was good. So what advice would you provide for someone who would like to launch their own firm?
not that.
Okay.
Not
Should we quote that? Not that? All right.
yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to share my story, but it's definitely not like the smoothest route. I love owning a firm. I'm such a cheerleader for law and for entrepreneurship. It's just been amazing. And so I know that there's lawyers out there that want to do their own thing, but there's a lot of fear, a lot of concerns, a lot of like, overly conservative. Where am I going to find clients? Where am I going to get the money? So I do like to share my story of basically starting a law firm out of what was basically like a epic disaster of every segment of my life at once.
Wow. Okay.
Because because then it's like, well, how hard can it be with a little bit of planning, and a little
Right.
bit of savings? So I think that there are many more resources available now than there were, 8 or 9 years ago for new law firm owners.
Yep.
But I think with a little bit of planning, and a little bit of strategy, taking some time, not years, but maybe taking a couple months to think about what you want the firm to look like, what kind of cases you're going to do, who your clients are going to be. That seems common sense, but that's honestly not how most of us do it. Most of us just at one point were like, yeah, whatever, I'll, get my own office, and not approaching it as a business. And, other people have said this, but lawyers are not trained as business owners. And
Right.
so just taking the time to have a little bit of a business plan and learning about some of those aspects, I mean, I think it's just a no-brainer. You spend a couple months doing that and then it just smooths the way.
Yeah. So, like, what were the first type of cases you were taking?
At the time, I was doing mostly criminal. That's what I'd been doing.
Okay.
I had a couple of clients come with me, but criminal cases are really they're flat fee and they're pretty
Right.
short-lived. So
Right.
it's not like I had this big book of business,
Right.
this big trust account to take with me. It was like a few small things. But at that point, I'd been doing that for about 8 years. And so I had some clients, I had some repeat clients. I was doing, what do they call it? They call it rent law, when you do anything to pay the rent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, somebody would say, "Oh, can you do my divorce? Can you draft a will? Can you do my custody case?" I did a little bit of that. But where I really where my practice really turned towards was immigration.
Right.
And that was something that I'd always been interested in. I just hadn't really, doubled down on it early in my career, largely because I didn't have any mentors in
Yeah.
Richmond that were doing immigration. There were very few immigration firms in Richmond when I moved here. And so as a young lawyer, I didn't, just want to launch into a new practice area at that point. But I am bilingual. I'm fluent in Spanish,
Nice.
and I'd been interested in immigration, and I'd done a little bit of work while I was living in Miami. So that
Okay.
ended up really being a great turn for us.
That's amazing. Yeah, I actually had just written down on my paper mentor, like to ask, like it must have been hard if you had, you mentioned not being there with any family and like doing things yourself. And so, I mean, you didn't really have a mentor. So, or did you?
I did
Okay.
professionally. I did. So when I was recruited out of legal aid and I went to one small law firm and then I moved over to another, I landed with some really, really legendary criminal defense attorneys
Nice.
here. And one in particular really, really mentored me, brought me in on big cases. And so I did have just really good professional mentors. And
Okay.
frankly, when you're at a small firm and if you're willing to go try cases, they're there for you. It's not like a big firm where you have to be there for years and years before you get responsibility. I mean, I was, trying jury trials, doing murder cases,
Wow.
in the first few years of my career.
Wow. So tell us like why immigration? I actually do have family in the immigration business in Miami, like lawyers. But tell me why immigrate. I know there's some history behind it for you when you were younger. I think you kind of were always interested in immigration. Maybe it had to do with like your grandparents and like I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I do find in immigration law, a lot of people have a reason of why they
Yep.
went into that. They don't just like fall into it. So yeah, like I said, I grew up in New Jersey, in a, very Jewish family, Jewish community, and my
Nice.
grandparents were Holocaust survivors. And that was kind of like common in, in the temple and in the community, like the grandparents, generation, had come to the US as refugees.
And
So
so wait, when you were with your grandmother, your grandparents on Friday night, it was like Shabbat, right? Like you were right or
it
not? Were you not
It
celebrating,
was.
observing,
Yeah,
or
we
okay?
did. did, yeah, but it was the other grandparents.
Okay, I was just picturing it like, you go in there for anyway. All right,
We
so
did, yes. Yeah, we did Shabbos dinner there,
good.
and then followed by, Jeopardy and then Murder, She Wrote.
Okay, sorry to
That
interrupt. Go ahead.
was the lineup. So, and that had always been like very interesting to me. And they didn't talk about it very much, which is typical of that generation.
Yep.
So we didn't really know a lot about like how they got here. We knew why they left Europe, but then we didn't really know a lot of that stories and then or a lot of their story. And then at some point, I think maybe I was in middle school or so. We were cleaning out the basement and we found all of these boxes of their immigration documents and
Wow.
things like their requests for visas and their letters asking people to help them get out of Germany and things like that. And that really had a big effect on me. And so even though I didn't immediately go into immigration law, I did have a natural interest in that. And so I took classes in law school. I had an immigration clerkship in law school because I was very interested in those stories and, sort of how people just all the incredible stories and reasons of why people come here to start a new life. I felt I was very, moved by it. And then that really came full circle when we turned our practice towards immigration, and we do primarily family and humanitarian based immigration today. So it's
Amazing.
really, echoes of what prior generations went through.
It's amazing in your story, your journey, your own journey got you there, like from, doing the criminal defense, working in the basements, working for, the legal aid and the civil side. And now you're actually you're sort of connecting the dots as you do the immigration work. Like that was one of my next questions is, like, tell us about your firm. Like, tell us about who's coming to you for help.
Yeah, one of the things, I'm glad that you said that because to me, the progression feels very natural. It doesn't feel like we changed practice areas, dramatically. At the end of the day, I've always only represented people, normal people,
Mhm.
individuals, that have some kind of problem, which I think is like the heart of what we do as lawyers and what I wanted to be doing as lawyers. So I feel really fortunate that we can do that. Today, our firm we're 12 people. We have
Wow,
all women.
that's
Um,
amazing. Mazel tov. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, we have a really wonderful team. I will be the first to admit that I had a lot to learn about running a firm. I made
Right.
mistakes early on, but I'm really grateful of where we are today. Our main office is outside of Richmond. We have a client service office in Guatemala City that I actually just got back from.
Unbelievable.
Because our client base is almost exclusively Spanish speaking.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
and so we basically like needed more talent, more bilingual talent
So,
to
so are your employees, are they attorneys? Are they paralegals? Who is
um
your staff?
we have a mix. We have another attorney, three paralegals, intake specialists, director of operations. One of the things that we do that is a little unique is we have two teams. We have a legal team and a client service team.
Mhm.
And they don't really like mix. And so the legal team, the paralegals, the legal assistants, they don't assist clients. They just do casework. Well, not just do casework, but they focus on casework. And then
Right.
we have a client service team that handles client updates and intake and all of those things. And so that's allowed us to be really efficient,
Mhm.
really quick, but also to give really good client service, which is not a given in law firms. And
Right.
so,
Right.
we have those two teams working together, and then of course they interface using, case management systems and regular meetings and things like that. But we really have, two separate sides to the firm.
It's amazing. So what would you say is like the most important? You talk about client, maybe it's intake, like client services. What's the most important aspect about that?
Well, I mean, any firm needs to have a good intake process,
Sure.
and
Yep.
so the intake team is really critical. The client service team, I think, is really how we distinguish ourselves. There's, like I had said earlier, when I first moved into town, there wasn't a lot of other immigration lawyers. There are more today. There's also, just more interconnectedness, and there's, national law firms and things like that. So, we constantly have to be on top of our game and provide the value that we're asking for. And one of the things that we do really well, that I can say this, truthfully, because it's not me, it's the team doing it, is amazing customer service. And so we do like on the spot intake, same day consultations.
Okay.
But where I think we really shine with current clients are we really put a lot of time and energy into maintaining current clients. So clients get weekly updates. They don't have to call us and say, what's going on with my case? We're calling them weekly and saying, here's the update, here's what's going on. We check in on birthdays, when they have kids, when they
Mhm.
go on vacation, all those kinds of things. That's a full-time job at my firm.
Wow.
The client care coordinator, keeping
That's
clients happy.
amazing. Good for
Yeah,
you. I
it's
mean, how do
really
you
valuable.
grow? I'm sorry?
It's really valuable.
Yeah, for sure. How do you grow from, being yourself, like being a solo? Like, do you remember your first hire? Like, how do you get up to 12 people?
Yeah, my first hire was a paralegal. And I remember we were actually we were in Miami. So you and I were talking offline about, Miami before and how we love Miami. I was down in Miami. So I started my firm, single mom. I always feel like obligated to say I got remarried. I have a great husband now. Because the headlines are always like single mom runs law firm. So
Okay,
I'm
so I won't
actually
put that as our caption. Okay.
he's used to it. But so I got remarried and had have a stepson and have another
Congratulations.
son. And so about 2 years after that, I had just been kind of doing the solo thing, and we went down to Miami for a weekend. And like any entrepreneur, I'm having like these brilliant ideas in the pool,
Yeah.
at
You're
Miami.
just,
And
yeah, for
I get
sure.
out of the pool and I go to my husband and I'm like, I think I should start hiring people and grow the firm. And he's like, okay, I don't
Great.
know what we're talking
Get
about this
back in
right
the
now,
pool. Get this
but
lady a margarita ASAP. Like,
yeah, exactly,
pina
exactly,
colada, please.
exactly. So he's used to this by now. But
Yeah.
so first hire was a paralegal. I went back and kind of recruited a paralegal that I had worked with, previously at another job. And then about 6 months later, added another paralegal, and then
Wow.
added an associate attorney, which I kind of just, great opportunity fell in my lap. And she's amazing. She's still with the firm now. She's a non-equity partner now. And so I just saw so quickly that when you add somebody and you delegate and take stuff off of your desk, what else
Yeah.
you can do. And
Yeah.
it grew really, or I don't want to say organically, because that makes it sound like it just happens on its own, but I would say it grew steadily from there.
That's awesome. That's great. Why would you say so many women are leaving a legal career um, midway through?
It's so there's really clear data on this, and actually, this Harvard economist that I had been reading up on for years actually won the Nobel Peace Prize this year for her work on women in specifically in demanding professional careers. So obviously, there's it plays out a little bit differently in different fields, but she was looking at like law and medicine and academia, and she uses the term greedy profession, which it's just a profession that just is all encompassing and it like takes everything from you.
Hmm.
And those are
Okay.
the cultural expectations within the field, is that you're going to work all the time, you're going to always be accessible. Like we all accept this.
So, like,
And
well, that's interesting because if anybody who is not, and I don't mean to cut you off, if anybody who is not like a lawyer heard greedy profession, they'd automatically think about just lawyers wanting more and more money, right? Like a bigger 50%,
oh yeah, yeah,
thirty
yeah.
percent, like of like a settlement or like whatever a verdict. But this is like totally different. Like greedy profession is like a total, seems to me, this is the first time I've heard it, like a totally different meaning.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. Thanks for making that distinction. No, it's the profession that's kind of greedy of our
Yeah,
time and energy.
interesting. Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely.
and not all fields are like that. I mean, there's more work-life balance in some other professional fields, but with law, we just accept it. It's a given. We're kind of, introduced to that in law school. I know earlier in my career, I was working 7 days a week, for sure, when I was doing, heavy trial
You
work.
were
And
working in the pool too in Miami, like you
yeah,
were brainstorming ideas. So come on, you're always
yeah,
working.
that's the entrepreneur.
There you
That's
go.
the entrepreneur me.
Yeah.
But so it is, really hard. And I get some pushback sometimes with people saying that I shouldn't, be focused on moms. It should be all parents that need more flexibility. And while I think that is true, certainly in an ideal world, where the numbers show that that's really not who's suffering at the moment.
Right. Okay.
So, the American Bar Association does these surveys every 2 years, looking at, who's leaving, who's staying, what are their reasons. And, for the last several sets of these surveys, women have been leaving mid-career somewhere in the range between 25 to 30% of people, which is a huge
Wow.
percent. And they cite as the number one reason of why they're leaving is the work-life pressure. They can't sustain it. It's too overwhelming, burnout. And, you don't have to be a mom. Any parent with little kids knows that
Yep.
you cannot work 70, 80 hours a week with little kids. Something's got to give. And statistically, and just in our society, it's the women that are giving, and it's,
Yeah.
women attorneys that are leaving.
Wow, that's a great explanation. That's so true. So what would you say that like firms should do to attract and retain women? And what why is that so important? I think I know why it's important. I'm just sort of setting you up for an answer. I'm not personally saying why is it important, but I just want to hear your
Yeah,
explanation.
I mean, I think, well, it's important because, more than half of lawyers actually are women now. 60% of incoming law students are women. And so in the early years of our career, it's 50 to 60% women. And so, if 25 to 30% leave after a few years, that's just a huge, brain drain out of the profession.
Mm,
Those are people who now have a couple years of experience. They'd be moving into partnership or leadership roles, and then they're just out, and it has to create a vacuum. On top of, obviously, I think these days most people recognize that you want, some level of diversity, different perspectives in the workplace, whatever that looks like. So the other thing too is that, not obviously not all women are the same. Some women don't want to be lawyers, or they want to work part-time, or whatever the case may be. But I don't think that we can accept that, a quarter to a third of people are just absolutely thrilled to be leaving their careers, right when they're starting to get good.
right.
So I think we do need to see, across law, across the entire field, just a shifting of expectations. It doesn't have to be greedy anymore. There's so much technology, so much efficiency, everything from case management to virtual work to having teams in different time zones to AI now. There's all these different ways that, lawyers and law firms can optimize and retain profitability and just move away from this really like dinosaur mindset of you have to be at your desk, 7 days a week, or you have to be chained to your cell phone, or your email. And I
Right.
think accepting that is like the first step. And then, strategically looking at how you can optimize your firm, so that you don't have to give up profitability. I mean, nobody wants to lose money, and we all want to help our clients, and most of us want to grow and things like that. But it really is possible. The tools exist, and some people are doing it, and I would just like to see more law firms do it.
And you think there was a shift because of I feel like because of the pandemic, people and bosses and companies sort of realize that, it's a generation of people who might not want to be behind a desk 40 hours plus a week, and B, it's not really like that necessary, like if you can get the work done from home, right? So I think like there's a mix of that in there too, after the pandemic.
Yeah, I know, 100%. The pandemic forced me to optimize my firm. I
Right.
thought that we were like so modern beforehand, but we weren't really set up to be paperless. We weren't really set up to be virtual. And the other thing too is that, it doesn't have to be one or the other. I mean, my firm is not fully virtual. We have an office, most of us work full time. What that usually looks like about 35 hours a week for most of my team members. But you have some flexibility. We have people with stacked schedules. We have some hybrid schedules. If a paralegal's kid has a physical therapy on Wednesdays at 9, she doesn't come in until 10, those sorts of things where we just create a culture where that's
Right.
accepted. But what a lot of there's sort of this backlash against the work from home with COVID is, the other end of the spectrum where employers are worried about retaining profitability. And I'm not that loosey-goosey. I mean, our firm is we grow every single year by taking on more cases, increasing revenue. We have really hard charging folks at the firm. It's just there are so many places where things can be optimized to give people more of that balance. And it's just healthier. It's better for retention too.
Oh, totally, totally. Like, what advice would you give uh, to women law students coming out of law school and entering the profession?
So I'll talk about my book in a minute, but when I wrote my book, Mom's a Lawyer, How to Start a Firm and Take Control of Your Life, I was really thinking it was going to be more towards women like, in my age, like, late 30s to early 50s. But when I actually got contacted by a lot of like younger lawyers and law students, and a couple weeks ago I was speaking at a panel event here in Richmond, and a woman raised her hand and she said, "I'm 23. I'm single. I don't even have a boyfriend. I'm not getting married. I'm not having kids anytime soon, but." I just started my job and everyone works all the time, and I'm having a hard time seeing what my future is like.
Right.
I don't know what the next 10 years is going to look like. So what that tells me, I think, is that people are thinking about those things earlier. I didn't think about that in law school. In law school, I was just so obsessed with becoming a lawyer and a trial lawyer. I was absolutely thrilled to be working 7 days a week. But I think that has changed. And I think law students and young lawyers are asking for a little bit more. And so, I think that's great. My advice would be twofold. One, I think it's never too early to start planning out your trajectory of where you want to be in the future. And so, whether that's start your own law firm or look for a firm that meets your needs. The other side of that coin is that, there's different phases of your career in your life. And so I don't think, if your first job out of law school is not quite what you want, or it's not the lifestyle quite that you want, you don't need to panic. I mean, I started at in a cinder block office, doing eviction defense and protective orders, which I loved at that time. And now 15 years later, it's completely different. I mean, I'm running an immigration law firm. So I think that
Yeah.
law students are sort of like natural planners, and they
Right.
can like really bog down into the stress of, planning out every aspect of their career. So it's great to look to the future and strategize and sort of build your vision, but also to, understand that there's going to be different phases to a career.
Totally. Totally. Tell us about your website, momsalawyer.com, and your book, and you're offering packages. Tell us about the whole thing.
Sure. So I still run the firm day to day, but I don't. I'm not in court anymore, and I have a team working
Wow.
the firm. So I'm mostly management at this point, which I'm really enjoying. A few years ago, I started, hearing from other women lawyers, starting off with like people that I knew in my own circle and then kind of extending beyond that. And it was just like curiosity. So I would say my firm really started to grow in about 2020.
Mhm.
And so, maybe about 2021, 2022, people are contacting me saying like, "Hey, I heard, your firm is doing really well, but you don't work full time. Is that true?" Kind of like feeling out like, how are you doing this?
Right, right.
And I've always been an open book of, if people can learn from my mistakes and what worked and what didn't, then I want to do that because I am really passionate about law. I love being a lawyer. I'm passionate about other women being in the law and also about, moms staying in the law. So I started putting together these little like emails and checklists and, here's what I did, or here's how I started marketing. And it sort of kind of grew into a manuscript. And
Nice.
yeah, and so I submitted it. It was accepted. We went through the editing
Wow.
process, and then it was published in January of 2023.
Okay.
And I was really excited by the response. I got, a lot of people were contacting me, wanting to talk, wanting to go a little further, ask advice. So I created a digital course, and then I started doing private consulting. So I do
Wow.
that in addition to the firm. It's a passion project. It's a side business now, consulting, where typically like the typical profile of who I would work with would be a lawyer who is either looking to start a firm, about to start a firm, or has her own firm, is like a solo, but either wants to grow it or just isn't really happy with where it is, either from a business standpoint or from a work-life balance standpoint. And that's been really fun. I'm really enjoying that now, and
Great.
thinking about additional programs in the future. But at the moment, I'm balancing running my firm and then also doing this consulting work.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I know the website looks great. I hope everybody will go check
Thanks.
it out. And like, however we could help you, we'd love to. I'd like to see the book too at some point. Maybe an autographed copy in the mail or something.
Yeah, I will send it out.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So like, where do you see yourself and your firm and, mom's a lawyer in like 5 to 10 years?
So I have a ton of energy for the firm. We've grown every year. We're going to grow again this year. We just closed out, Q1. I really want us to be a leader in our market. We're very Virginia focused. We have some clients from around the world, but we're very community focused. We do a lot of community events in Richmond, and invest here where we all live. So I will continue to grow the firm and be leaders in immigration law. I'm also really want our firm to continue to be, I think, an example of what a women-led, family-friendly law firm can be. That it doesn't have to be like we're all working from home part-time. That we can have a thriving, successful firm, but with a little bit of a more modern and progressive workplace culture that supports working parents. And then on the consulting side, I have found that so rewarding. That was something that grew very organically, and I'm having a lot of fun with that, and getting to know other lawyers and watch them grow their firms and see how quickly it can happen. But all of my work on that front is really drawn from my own experience, and so it took me a number of years to grow my firm. But I think that with hopefully with some of the materials that I've created and with some assistance, people can do it a lot more quickly and a lot more smoothly than I did.
Wow. Okay. Miriam, did we leave anything out? Did I not touch on anything that you wanted to talk about or any advice that you wanted to share?
I don't know. I've been doing a lot of talking, so.
No, no, that's all right. That talking's for you. I don't do any of that. I just ask questions. But okay, so anything else? Because I mean, I think we captured a lot of it, and I think congratulations on all your success. It's really
Yeah.
amazing.
Thanks.
I think you were still doing criminal when you submitted your lawyer story back in
Yeah.
2019, end of 2019.
Yeah. And I had a lot of fun with that. That was a wonderful
Yeah,
career to have, but I was ready to move into focus on immigration, and now really to personally move into management.
yeah.
And it's been really fun to watch lawyer stories
Oh,
grow as
thank you.
well. I always read the stories, and
Cool.
I love I'm such a cheerleader for law. Sometimes
Yeah,
people can
yeah.
become lawyers or law school and the legal profession, and I'm really proud to be a part of it, and to be a part of the community that you share.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you too. And I really appreciate those words. Please stay right there. Thank you so much for being on, Miriam Airington-Fisher. It's great to stay connected. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves.